He ghosted the sweet girl next door, so she got a dog he's deathly allergic to. Now he's begging to come back? Let me tell you something, honey. In my 67 years of living on Maple Street, I've seen it all. Divorces, affairs, that incident with the Johnsons' illegal exotic bird smuggling ring. Don't even get me started on that cockatoo situation. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened with sweet little Sophie Chin in apartment 3B. Now, I'm not one to gossip. Lord knows I only share what's necessary for the spiritual well-being of our community. But this story needs to be told. Pour yourself some tea, dear, because this is going to take a while. It all started about 2 years ago when Sophie moved into our building. 22 years old, fresh out of college, working at some tech startup downtown. Such a polite girl, always helped me with my groceries, always said, "Good morning, Mrs. Mel," with that bright smile of hers. Her mother would have been proud if she'd been around to see it. Poor thing lost both parents in that terrible accident when she was 19. That's why she was so mature for her age, I suppose. Trauma does that to you. About 6 months after she moved in, she started dating this boy, Marcus Williams. 24, worked in finance, drove one of those fancy electric cars that doesn't make any noise, nearly gave me a heart attack backing out of the parking lot more than once. Handsome enough, I suppose, if you like that clean-cut, polo shirt type. Always had his hair slicked back like he was auditioning for Wall Street. I knew something was off about him from day one. Call it women's intuition, call it 67 years of reading people like the morning paper. The way he'd check his phone constantly when they were together, the way his smile never quite reached his eyes, the way he'd flinch whenever he heard sirens. My late husband Harold was a detective for 30 years. I know the signs of someone running from something. But Sophie? That girl was head over heels. You should have seen them those first few months. Picnics in the courtyard, movie nights where I could hear them laughing through the walls. These old buildings, the insulation is terrible. She even started cooking his favorite meals, and let me tell you, the smell of her grandmother's dumplings would float through the hallways every Sunday evening. I remember one particular evening, maybe 8 months into their relationship, when I was taking out my recycling. I always time it for 6:47 p.m. Best chance of running into neighbors, you understand. Sophie was sitting on the steps, practically glowing. "Mrs. Mel," she called out. "Marcus and I are talking about getting a place together next year. Maybe even getting a dog." "That's wonderful, dear," I said, though my stomach did a little flip. "What kind of dog?" "Well, that's the thing." Her face fell a little. "Marcus is super allergic. Like, emergency room allergic. So I guess that's just a dream for now. Red flag number 1, if you ask me. A man who can't compromise on a simple pet?" But I kept my mouth shut. Nobody listens to the old lady's advice anyway. For the next 10 months, things seemed perfect from the outside. Marcus practically lived in 3B. I'd see him coming and going at all hours. Started keeping some clothes there too. Judging by the laundry, I'd spot them doing together on Saturdays. They even went on vacation together, Cabo, I think. Sophie posted all those beach photos on that Instagram thing. Yes, I have Instagram. How else am I supposed to keep track of what everyone's doing? But then came that Tuesday in September. I'll never forget it because it was the same day my sourdough starter exploded all over my kitchen counter. I was cleaning up that mess when I heard raised voices from 3B. Not fighting exactly, but something intense. Marcus's voice all serious and low. Then silence. Then the sound of footsteps rushing down the stairs. I peeked out my peephole. Judge me all you want, but these peepholes were installed for a reason, and saw Marcus heading out with a duffel bag. Not his usual gym bag, a bigger one. The kind you pack when you're not planning to come back for a while. 20 minutes later, there's a knock on my door. Sophie, eyes red-rimmed, holding a tissue. "Mrs. Mel," she said, trying to smile. "I'm sorry if we were loud. Marcus, he's going through something. He needs to visit his family in Seattle for a while. To press pause on us." Press pause? In my day, we called that what it was, breaking up. But this poor girl was clinging to hope like it was a life raft. "How long will he be gone?" I asked, ushering her in for tea chamomile. Good for the nerves. He didn't say. He said he'd call when he was ready to unpause. She laughed, but it was hollow. "Is that even a thing, Mrs. Mel? Pausing a relationship?" "Oh, honey," I said, pouring her tea and sliding my good cookies across the table. "In my experience, when a man says he needs space, he's really saying he needs space from you. Permanently." She cried then. Really cried. The kind of crying that comes from your soul, you know? I held her hand across my kitchen table and let her get it all out. Told her about my first boyfriend, Tommy Kowalski, who needed to find himself and ended up finding himself married to my cousin Rita 6 months later. Sometimes sharing your own pain helps ease someone else's. The next few weeks were hard to watch. Sophie would text him constantly. I know because she'd do it in the hallway sometimes, pacing back and forth, muttering, "Please just answer," under her breath. She'd call and leave voicemails. I could hear them through the walls. "Marcus, please, just let me know you're okay. Did I do something wrong? Just talk to me." Nothing. Radio silence. That boy ghosted her like she was a bad Tinder date, not his girlfriend of a year and a half. Her friend Emma, lovely girl, comes by every Wednesday, always brings me those fancy macarons from the French bakery, tried to talk sense into her. I'd hear them in 3B, Emma's voice firm. "Sophie, he's not pressing pause." He left. He's a coward who couldn't break up with you properly. But it wasn't until week 3 that something shifted in Sophie. I was watering my plants on the balcony when I saw her coming back from somewhere, walking different. Purposeful. She had a brochure in her hand. I squinted. My distance vision isn't what it used to be, and made out something about the animal shelter. "Thinking of getting a pet?" I called down. She looked up, and for the first time in weeks, there was a spark in her eyes. "You know what, Mrs. Mel? I think I am. Marcus is allergic, but Marcus isn't here, is he?" Atta girl, I thought. 2 days later, she brought home Chester. "Now, let me paint you a picture of this dog. Imagine a mop that someone forgot about for 10 years, add 4 legs and the sweetest brown eyes you've ever seen. Some kind of terrier mix," the shelter said, though I think there was definitely some dust bunny in his genealogy. 8 years old, calm as a cucumber, and the kind of dog that looked like he'd seen some things, but decided to be optimistic anyway. Sophie was transformed. Suddenly, she was up early for walks, coming home for lunch to check on him, spending her evenings on the couch with this scruffy little angel instead of staring at her phone. I'd see them in the courtyard, Sophie reading while Chester snoozed in the sun. That dog was better than any therapy money could buy. I started making extra dog treats. Don't look at me like that. I looked up recipes on the Google. Chester would do this little tap dance when he saw me coming with my treat tin. Sophie would laugh, really laugh, for the first time since Marcus left. "He's helping you heal," I told her one afternoon as Chester performed his treat acquisition dance. "He really is," she said, scratching behind his ears. I didn't realize how lonely I was until I wasn't anymore. Life went on. October turned to November. Sophie started going out with friends again. I even saw her coming home from what looked like a date one Friday night. Different man, taller, brought her to the door like a gentleman. Chester had given her life back to her. Then came that Tuesday in November, 6 weeks after Marcus had vanished into the Seattle mist. I was just settling in with my evening tea and my stories. Don't you dare judge me for watching The Young and the Restless. I've been invested in Victor Newman's drama since 1982, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophie. "Mrs. Mel, you're not going to believe this." She forwarded me a screenshot. A text from Marcus. "Hey, I'm back. Coming over tomorrow so we can talk." I nearly dropped my phone. The audacity. The unmitigated gall. 6 weeks of silence, and this boy thinks he can just announce his return like he's some kind of returning hero? I immediately went to 3B. Sophie was pacing, Chester following her back and forth like a worried little shadow. "What does he mean he's back?" she kept saying. "Back from where? Back to what?" "Honey," I said, using my firm voice, the one I used to use on my students when I taught 5th grade. "You don't owe this boy anything. He left. He ignored you. You've moved on. But what if he has an explanation? What if something happened?" Oh, sweet, sweet girl. Still hoping. Still giving him the benefit of the doubt. That's the thing about good people. They assume everyone else is good too. She texted him back. "What are you talking about?" His response made my blood pressure spike. "I'm back. Ready to unpause our relationship. I'll talk to you about everything tomorrow." Unpause. Like she was a Netflix show he'd put on hold while he went to make a sandwich. I stayed with Sophie for another hour, helping her process, watching Chester nervously lick her hand whenever she got too agitated. The next day, I did what any concerned neighbor would do. I positioned myself at my peephole at exactly 2:47 p.m. when Sophie said Marcus would arrive. Sure enough, there he was. But something was different. Boy had a tan like he'd been living on a beach. His clothes were new, expensive looking. And he was walking with this swagger, this confidence that made my skin crawl. I heard him knock on 3B. Heard the door open. Couldn't make out the words at first, but then the volume started climbing. What is that? Marcus's voice, high and panicked. I heard Chester's low, questioning woof. Good boy. Protect your mama. Then Marcus exploded. And I mean exploded. The boy went from 0 to hysterical in about 2 seconds. Screaming about his allergies, gasping like he was dying. He wasn't. I've seen anaphylaxis, and this wasn't it. Demanding to know how Sophie could do this to him. You knew about my allergies. You knew. This is sabotage. Sophie's voice, steady but with an edge. Marcus, you broke up with me. You disappeared for 6 weeks. I got a dog because I wanted a dog, not because of your allergies. I didn't break up with you. I pressed pause. I communicated that. Oh, I had to see this. I crept out into the hallway, pretending to check my mail. Thank goodness for these cluster mailboxes. Perfect excuse for loitering. Marcus was in Sophie's doorway, red-faced, tears streaming, pointing at Chester like the dog was personally responsible for global warming. Chester, bless his heart, just sat there, head tilted, probably wondering why this strange man was having a meltdown. You need to get rid of it, Marcus demanded. If you want us to work, the dog has to go. That's when our dear Sophie transformed before my very eyes. The sweet, accommodating girl who used to cook his favorite meals? Gone. In her place stood a woman who'd found her backbone. Get out, she said, voice low and dangerous. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. And if you ever call my dog it again, I'll introduce you to my lawyer. Marcus sputtered, backpedaled, tried to regroup. Sophie, please, I love you. I've done a lot of thinking. Emma's voice. I hadn't seen her arrive, but there she was, pushing past me in the hallway, fury in her eyes. You want to talk about thinking? Let's talk about what you were really doing in Seattle, Marcus. The color drained from his face. I mean drained. Boy went from red to white like someone had pulled a plug. What? What are you talking about? Emma pulled out her phone, started reading. Local man questioned in cryptocurrency scam targeting elderly investors. Marcus Williams, 24, allegedly convinced several retirement home residents to invest their savings in a fake digital currency called Senior Coin. I gasped. Out loud. Couldn't help it. A scammer? Targeting old people? My hand went to my chest, thinking of all the times this boy had helped me with my groceries, probably casing my apartment, looking for things to steal. That's not true, Marcus stammered. Those charges were dropped. I was cleared. I was helping my uncle with his business dash, your uncle who's now in federal prison. Emma continued, scrolling. The one who threw you under the bus in his plea deal? That uncle. Sophie was shaking. Chester pressed against her legs, and I could see her hand gripping his collar like an anchor. You used me, she whispered. You came back because you needed somewhere to stay. Someone respectable to vouch for you. A normal life to show the authorities. No. Sophie, I love you dash, get out. This time, he listened. But not before throwing one last tantrum, declaring he'd sue her for emotional distress, for knowingly triggering his allergies, for destroying their future. The whole building probably heard him stomping down the stairs. Sophie collapsed in her doorway, Chester immediately climbing into her lap despite being definitely too big for that. Emma and I rushed to her. I'll make tea, I announced, because that's what you do in a crisis. You make tea. We spent the rest of that afternoon in Sophie's apartment, piecing together the truth. Emma had done her homework. Girl should have been a private investigator. Marcus hadn't just been involved in one scam. There were complaints in 3 states. Elder fraud, identity theft, wire fraud. He'd been using his finance job to identify targets, then passing information to his uncle's investment firm. The pause, Sophie said, staring at her tea. He didn't need space. He needed an alibi. A place to hide. And you were perfect, Emma said gently. Young professional, spotless record, no family to ask questions. No family, Sophie repeated, and something in her voice made my heart break. This poor girl, orphaned so young, had been targeted precisely because she was alone. But here's where the story takes a turn, dear. Because Sophie Chin might have been orphaned, but she wasn't alone. Not anymore. The first sign of Marcus's downfall came 2 weeks later. I was at the grocery store, minding my own business in the frozen foods section, when I heard familiar voices in the next aisle. I can't believe she called the feds on me. On me. Marcus's voice, whiny and petulant. I peeked around the corner. There he was with some friend, loading up on energy drinks and instant noodles. Boy looked rough, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, that desperate look of someone whose world is crumbling. Dude, you tried to break into her apartment, his friend said. What did you expect? Excuse me? I nearly dropped my frozen peas. Break into her apartment? I abandoned my cart and rushed home. Sophie was in the courtyard with Chester, and I could see the new security camera mounted above her door. When were you going to tell me about the break-in? I demanded. She sighed. Last Tuesday, 3 a.m. Chester went ballistic. I've never heard him bark like that. Marcus was trying to pick the lock. Said he left something important inside and needed to get it. What did you do? Called the police. Then called the FBI tip line Emma found. Turns out they've been looking for him. Good girl. Good girl. But Marcus, in his infinite wisdom, didn't stop there. Over the next month, he escalated. Started showing up at Sophie's work. Sending flowers with creepy notes. Creating fake social media accounts to harass her. Chester, our brave little warrior, developed a sixth sense for when Marcus was near. That dog would growl at windows, alerting Sophie before Marcus could even knock. The restraining order helped, but Marcus was getting desperate. His assets were frozen, his passport flagged, and apparently, several of his elderly victims were filing civil suits. He blamed it all on Sophie, convinced that if she'd just taken him back, none of this would have happened. Then came the incident that changed everything. It was a Thursday evening in December. I was putting out my Christmas decorations. Yes, I'm one of those people who starts early. Joy is in short supply these days. Might as well stretch it out. I heard Chester barking, not his usual alert bark, but something primal, terrified. I rushed to my door just in time to see Marcus in the hallway with some kind of spray bottle, shooting something at Chester through Sophie's mail slot. The poor dog was pawing at his face, whimpering. What are you doing? I screamed, louder than I've screamed since I found Harold's secret cigarette stash in 1987. Marcus spun around, and I swear, there was nothing human in his eyes. Mind your own business, you old bat. Old bat? Old bat? I may be 67, but I did not survive raising 3 boys, 30 years of teaching, and the great sourdough starter explosion of 2023 to be called an old bat by a 2-bit scammer with a bad haircut. I charged at him with my broom. I'd been sweeping my doormat. Get away from that dog. He tried to spray me too, but I'd seen that move coming. Dodged it like Muhammad Ali, if Muhammad Ali had arthritis and a bad hip. The spray hit the wall, and the smell, pepper spray. This psychopath was pepper spraying a dog. Sophie burst out of her apartment, saw Chester's red, streaming eyes, and let out a sound I'll never forget. Pure rage. She launched herself at Marcus like a wildcat, and suddenly we had a full-on brawl in the hallway. I did what any responsible citizen would do. I called 911 and then started hitting Marcus with my broom while shouting play-by-play commentary for the dispatcher. He's down. She's got him in a headlock. Oh, he's trying to get up, not on my watch. Whack with the broom. Chester's okay. Oh, good boy, Chester. He's biting Marcus's ankle. That's what you get for pepper spraying a dog, you monster. The police arrived to find Marcus on the ground, Sophie sitting on his back, me standing guard with my broom, and Chester, despite his burning eyes, maintaining a firm grip on Marcus's designer sneaker. They arrested him for assault, pepper spray counts, animal cruelty, violating the restraining order, and attempted breaking and entering again. Emma, who'd apparently installed a camera in the hallway, bless her paranoid heart, had the whole thing on video. But here's where it gets really good. While Marcus was being processed, the police found something interesting in his pocket. A flash drive containing detailed information about his new targets, elderly residents at the Sunshine Senior Living Center 2 blocks away, including one Melinda Mel Patterson. That's right. Me. This little weasel had been planning to scam me. Well, that changed things. Suddenly, I wasn't just a witness. I was a potential victim. And let me tell you, the FBI takes attempted elder fraud very seriously, especially when the elder in question has been keeping detailed notes on the suspect's behavior for months. What? I told you I'm observant. The trial was a beautiful thing. Sophie testified with Chester right there as her emotional support animal, special dispensation from the judge, who was also a dog lover. I testified about everything I'd seen and heard, including Marcus's confession in Sophie's doorway. Emma presented her mountain of evidence. Even Marcus's friend from the grocery store testified, admitted Marcus had bragged about his foolproof plan to get Sophie back and use her apartment as his base of operations. But the real heroes were Marcus's previous victims who came forward. Ethel Martinez, 82, who'd lost her husband's life insurance payout. George Kim, 77, whose retirement savings vanished into senior coin. Dorothy Washington, 85, who mortgaged her paid-off house to invest in Marcus's uncle's fake company. When the verdict came down, guilty on all counts, facing up to 25 years, Sophie didn't celebrate. She cried. Cried for those elderly victims, for the trust that had been broken, for the girl she used to be who believed in fairy tale love. Chester, of course, was there to lick away her tears. The aftermath was both tragic and beautiful. Sophie threw herself into advocacy work, helping educate seniors about financial scams. She started a support group that meets in our community room every other Thursday. Chester became the unofficial therapy dog, making rounds to all the members, offering his scruffy comfort to people who'd lost so much. Marcus's parents, who'd apparently known about his activities and helped hide his assets, were also arrested. The whole family went down together, a dynasty of fraud collapsing like a house of cards. The authorities recovered some of the stolen money, though not nearly enough. Sophie never did go to medical school, at least not right away. The trauma, the trial, the weight of it all, it changed her path. Instead, she became a victim's advocate, working with the DA's office. Said she found her calling in protecting people who, like her, had been targeted for their vulnerability. As for me, well, I learned a few things. 1. Always trust your instincts about people. 2. Never underestimate the power of a good room in a crisis. And 3. Sometimes the best families are the ones you build yourself. These days, you'll find me in apartment 3D. I moved up a floor after the Johnsons relocated. Couldn't stand living next to the crime scene hallway. Sophie's in 4B now, a bigger place with a little balcony for Chester to sun himself. Emma moved into the building too, taking over Sophie's old apartment. We have dinner together every Sunday. Sophie makes her grandmother's dumplings, Emma brings wine, I make my famous lasagna, and Chester gets a special plate of his favorites. The young man Sophie's dating now? Dr. James Park, a veterinarian who treated Chester's pepper spray injuries. Sweetest man you ever met, and Chester approved of him immediately. Dogs know, you know. They're taking it slow, which is smart. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But the most satisfying part? Once a month, I write a letter to Marcus in federal prison. Nothing cruel or gloating, just updates about how well Sophie's doing, how Chester just got his therapy dog certification, how the community has rallied together to protect each other from scams. I always end with the same line, karma has 4 legs and a wagging tail. He never writes back, but I know he reads them. His former cellmate, lovely man named Tony, who is in for tax evasion. We play online Scrabble now, told me Marcus keeps every letter, growing more bitter with each one. Good. Let him marinate in the knowledge that his attempts to destroy Sophie only made her stronger. Oh, and that flash drive with my information? Turns out I was to be his masterpiece. He'd done extensive research, knew about Harold's life insurance, my teacher's pension, even found out about the settlement from that slip and fall at the grocery store in 2018. He planned to romance me, HA, gain my trust, and clean me out. The FBI agent said it was one of the most detailed targeting plans they'd ever seen. Joke's on him, though. My nephew's a financial advisor, and all my money's been in ironclad trusts since Harold passed. Even if I'd fallen for it, he couldn't have touched a penny without setting off alarm bells from here to Wall Street. These days, when new residents move into the building, they get the full orientation from me. Not just about garbage day and laundry room etiquette, but about watching out for each other, trusting your instincts, and never, ever letting someone pause your life while they sort out their crimes. Sophie recently started fostering senior dogs in addition to Chester. Her apartment's like a canine retirement home some days. Marcus, if he ever gets out, won't be able to come within 500 feet of her without triggering his severe allergies. She's made sure of that. It's a fortress of fur and loyalty. People sometimes ask me if I feel bad about how things ended for Marcus. A young man's life, essentially over before 25. And I think about those shaking hands of Ethel Martinez as she testified about losing her home. I think about George Kim breaking down on the stand, admitting he couldn't afford his heart medication after the scam. I think about Dorothy Washington, too proud to tell her children she'd been swindled, living on cat food to make ends meet. Then I think about Sophie, curled up in my kitchen that first night, crying over a man who saw her not as a person to love, but as a resource to exploit. I think about Chester, traumatized but still trusting, still loving, still protecting his human with every fiber of his scruffy being. No, I don't feel bad. Not one bit. Justice isn't always pretty. Sometimes it comes in the form of an FBI raid. Sometimes it's a guilty verdict that echoes through a courtroom. And sometimes it's a rescue dog named Chester who becomes the guardian angel a lonely girl never knew she needed. That's the thing about karma, honey. It doesn't always come when you expect it or in the form you imagine. But it comes. Oh, it always comes. And in this case, it came with 4 legs, a wagging tail, and the best security system money can't buy, the love of a good dog, and the protection of a community that refuses to let predators win. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's Thursday evening, which means it's time for our building's weekly potluck. Sophie's making those dumplings, Chester's doing his rounds for belly rubs, and there's a new resident in 2A I need to scope out. Young man claims to be a cryptocurrency consultant. We'll see about that. After all, I'm not one to gossip, but I am one to protect my people. And an apartment building on Maple Street, we look after our own. Even if it means occasionally wielding a broom like a weapon and writing passive-aggressive letters to federal inmates. That's just how we roll. Update. 3 years later, Sophie and James got married last spring. Small ceremony in the courtyard, Chester as the ring bearer. He ate the first set of fake rings during rehearsal, but nobody minded. Marcus's parents' house was seized by the government and sold at auction. Sophie used her victim's restitution payment to donate to the Elder Fraud Prevention Fund in Chester's name. As for Marcus, last I heard, he was teaching business ethics to other inmates as part of his rehabilitation program. The irony isn't lost on anyone. He'll be eligible for parole in 2048, by which time I'll be 92 and still writing those monthly letters. Chester lived to the remarkable age of 13, passing peacefully in his sleep after a perfect day of walks, treats, and belly rubs. Sophie was devastated, but by then she had a whole pack of rescue dogs and a community that rallied around her. We planted a tree in the courtyard in his memory, a dogwood, naturally. The Chester Memorial Fund has helped over 200 elderly scam victims recover financially and emotionally. His picture hangs in the community center, those soulful brown eyes watching over our support group meetings. And me? I'm still here, still watching, still protecting my people. Got myself a little terrier mix named Agnes, after my mother. Both were small but fierce. We make a good team, Agnes and I. She's got the instincts of a guard dog and the attitude of a honey badger. Marcus should count himself lucky he's locked up. Agnes doesn't forgive as easily as Chester did. But that's another story for another day. Right now, I've got some new neighbors to investigate and a casserole to deliver. After all, I'm not one to gossip. I'm just here to keep everyone safe. One nosy observation at a time.